Welcome to Becoming is Messy, where we dive deep into the journey of survival, transformation, and everything in between. I'm your host, Meghann Dawson, here to share the honest, unfiltered stories behind my own process of becoming. Life isn't a pretty and perfect straight line, and neither is becoming the person we're meant to be. Here, we embrace the ups, the downs, and all the beautiful, chaotic, messy moments that shape who we are. Whether you're in the thick of change or reflecting on past transformations, this space is for real conversations about what it means to grow, stumble, and rise again. So get comfy, settle in, and let's get messy. Welcome back, friends. Today's conversation sits right at the intersection of human behavior, communication, and connection. How we negotiate, how we relate, and how much of our lives are shaped not by what we say, but by what we understand about ourselves and others. I'm joined by Elena Sophia Ruiz, an entrepreneur, negotiator, human behavior expert, and the founder of United Payroll and HR Services. Elena Sophia, Life Balance, and the Alternative HR Solution. Elena brings over 3 decades of experience supporting individuals and organizations through complex professional and personal challenges. With deep expertise in negotiation, conflict resolution, leadership development, and human behavior. She's also the host of the podcast, Intimate Conversations with Men, where she creates thoughtful dialogue around life, love, intimacy, communication, and emotional awareness, often from the male perspective. Elena, welcome to Becoming is Messy. I am so happy to have you here.
Let's keep it messy today. How about that?
Yo, I love it. That's my favorite. It's Friday right now when we're recording, and messy is my favorite. So the messier, the better is what I say.
You know, I'm going to steal this from you and I'm going to call it Messy Friday from now on.
Oh, good.
Let loose and be free.
Help us get a little messy by setting the stage of this current season that you're in. Yeah. What does your world look like today and bringing you to this space?
With all the weather changes, not just the weather, everything changes. As a matter of fact, our state of mind and our mood changes with the weather. So I can see more sun, new things. I already heard the birds, the creating of the nest, the owls. I'm sure the coyotes are going to follow in a couple of months. I hear some of those last night. So changes. For me, with the payroll company, January, I usually say January for me is that month that I don't live through. On February 1st, I raised my head and I breathed and I said, what happened in the last month?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Every specific year has have tripled my attention to other things between family things and creating the podcast and, in addition, what I have. So it's definitely keeping it interesting and not boring for me. Sometimes a little messy, sometimes a little not, but we're still alive, which
I love it. Elena, you sound human, so that sounds good. Yeah, I've yet to meet somebody that doesn't have some level of messy, although some people might not want to admit it. But I think we all have that level of messy.
Yeah, and I love it. I tell as an HR consultant, when I speak with employees, I said, and sometimes I'm not perfect, obviously.
I don't believe you.
And I said, remember, human resources, the very first word is humans, and humans are not perfect. So there you go.
Well, walk us back to your imperfect beginnings. Every journey, again, has a little bit of messy, some twists and turns that bring you to where you are today. And it's just so telling to hear about people's backgrounds. So when you think about your growing up and your evolution so far, what are some of the twists and turns that stand out that made you who you are right now?
I'm going to start with the who am I? And answering I am, right?
Yes, I love that.
Back when I was a little girl, my big dream was to be a radio host, interviewing people, asking questions. I used to say question mark is my middle name.
Oh, that's so good.
Yes, I love asking questions, and sometimes they had to say, not you, Elena, everybody else. Sometimes I'm more quiet because also, sometimes I'm processing. When I was that was when I was very young, and also I remember one of the things that I always been very connected with money. You know how in Mexico, I was born in Mexico. Let's say that they give us a dollar, whatever the translation is in pesos, to each one of us siblings, but I will be the one who saved that dollar, and accumulated the
Yeah.
money, right? I think I learned the as Albert Einstein said, the seven wonder, the interest, you
Yes.
know. And at 12, believe it or not, that was my first entrepreneurial experience. I had a fashion design company. Now, when I say that, what I mean is I knew how to do those patterns, how to using the sewing machine, how to buy fabrics, how to cut those fabrics and sell them, and negotiating with the clients for the product. I
Yes.
definitely was wearing a lot of hats, like a lot of new entrepreneurs there in all over the world. But that didn't stop me for doing something that I love. And fashion is really important to me, and definitely comes from my mom. When I was 15, my mother told me, for whatever reason, she was not going to be able to. And I use the word afford because it's in Mexico. In Mexico, even, for transportation or whatever it is, as a single mom, I was not going to be able to go to high school. And she said, why don't you go and study like a IT career? And she had this thing about studying computers. So, and you can work and you can go to school. So I listened to her, and I went and I got this little title of computer programming, which is probably the most wonderful investment of my time, because
Right.
that, so AI is very, very important, very big right now. But what if you know what is behind AI? How to
Right. Oh, it's powerful. Yes. I mean, it's huge right now. My son, I am so envious of him as he grew up. He's a freshman in college and he was a self-taught coder. And I only had one class in college for programming. So I understand a very tiny bit, but we've learned so much from our son and the way that he's learned. And it's just in today's world, it's so important. It's behind the scenes and almost everything in our daily life, and so your mom was very insightful
I
to
believe
have pushed for
so.
that.
I believe so. And if you think about it, in many homes, AI is actually replacing parents, teachers, and
Yeah,
intimate relationships. So,
yeah,
as much as that could be sad, there's also something to reflect.
yep,
But going back to many years ago, that was not. I just learned how to program computers. And
yeah.
by doing that, I quickly, find a job that nobody wanted to hire a 16-year-old. But I found some job programming computers, which very quick went to, it was like a store. It was a point of sale program. But
Yep,
I was very young and very fast, a lot of energy since then, and I was finishing my work very fairly quick. So I started doing other things, and by that I learned to do more administrative things such as HR and payroll. In managing of the money, at the end of the day,
yeah,
and every morning I was the one taking all the cash to the bank and counting the money. So my relationship with money, as I said, was very early in my life, and I continue with that history. We have history now, right?
yes, I love it.
After that, I focused more in human resources and in HR. At the age of 21, I was working for the government. And one day I decided that I want to work for a company that it was outside the government, a private owned company. And I went and spoke with my boss, and I told him that I thought it was a good idea for them to terminate my employment with a nice severance package. I negotiated that
Yeah,
at 20.
yeah, that's amazing, incredible.
And because of that, I got enough money for a down payment for my first home at 21. So,
Wow.
but imagine a 21-year-old right now, right, buying a house. I still talk about this, and not a lot of people has accomplished that. And so the challenge there was the banks didn't know what to do with me. They never heard of a 21-year-old, let alone a woman. So they say no, but they didn't have any reason because I have all the documents that I needed to have. And they said, you know what? Let's just wait for a little bit. And I think they took him like 3 months to give me a yes because they had to process the idea of a
Right.
21-year-old and a girl.
Yeah, that's right.
Nowadays, like not long ago,
Of course.
at a house, that was the thing like, oh, where's your husband? As a single,
Love it.
when I was 21, right? So time goes by. Eventually, I continue to work in human resources and payroll. And one day, just the time comes when we have to move to the United States. And once we are here, what I didn't count on is that I had to speak English, and I didn't. Yes. At that moment, it is very painful to have so much information in your head, in your brain, in your mind, being able to process with such a speed. But because you're not able to communicate, nobody understands. Like I said, you become invisible to the world. They don't want to listen to you because they think
Yep.
because you cannot speak, you're not able to think.
Oh, wow.
And
That is powerful. You articulate that. I have goosebumps. Yeah, it's one of those where I'm aware of that, but hearing your personal story and your feelings with that, like that is just a very powerful experience to have all of that drive and intelligence
and
inside of you
yes.
and not being able to communicate that.
And then try to tell that 27-year-old, by the way, learning English at 27 is not easy. Try to tell
No, no.
that she comes to to get the American dream, and guess what? You don't speak English. You're not gonna ever interview individuals in the radio. That's not gonna happen, girlfriend.
Right, Elena? I've had years of Spanish in school, and I can barely speak it. I can get by very minimally, so I can't imagine at 27
You,
having to learn it, but then also be an adult with responsibility and having to figure out how to take care of yourself.
it's funny you said that because I've been telling people there's a lot of controversy because of the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I tell them, you know, why are you so upset? He doesn't speak Spanish. He speaks Puerto Rican. We do not
Yeah.
understand how he.
Yeah. Yeah, right? And his music is about as feel good as you can get. Just feel the music.
Where he is. Don't
Yeah.
listen, just feel it.
Yeah, feel it. Yeah, he has good
And
energy.
and you and I spoke about music before. That's an universal language,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
To connect with other individuals. I was listening to this conversation earlier today about when you go to a concert and you start getting all those liquids coming out of your body. If the performer manages to move the individuals to a different rhythm where we actually by accidentally exchange 20 and with other individuals we never met, that creates a whole I never thought about that. So
It is.
a whole wholeness of
Yes.
one group, and that's
Yes.
amazing. And I have been there
Yeah.
when I'm sitting very close to another individual, definitely probably
Oh, yeah.
some
Yeah.
genes. So going back to the time when I came here, and it took me 1 year to realize that I had to learn English in order to actually being able to survive. It was not
Yeah.
about
Right, right.
my mom. We have conversations about she dreaming that her kids came to the United States. And we actually, if you would work in fast food restaurants, that would be like super inspiring for her. If that, but she wanted us to have an opportunity in the country of opportunities, right? Yet we disappointed her because we didn't work in the fast food restaurant. I did not speak the language, but I didn't give up. And this is where I say about that who I am. Answering the
Yes.
my is I am. At that moment,
Yes.
what I know is that I am very persistent and ambitious.
Yep.
I don't think of something that I'm going to be okay with that. One of the things that I never settle for is being an employee. I was working for a company and thinking about looking for another job and doing the best in that company because I believe that we leave a footprint in every place that we go. Every person we meet, we leave a footprint of who we are. And those individuals, regardless, I remember calling one of my first jobs in Mexico for some reason, and I called my former employer And I just wanted to say hi. And I have really good memory with numbers. This was many years ago, and he's probably not alive anymore. And he said, there are employees who come and work and employees who leave a footprint, and are one of those. And that was and I was working as a payroll individual for his company. And when I called him, I had already a payroll company here. So that was unexpected. It took me 7 years from the moment I arrived to actually build a company, learning the language and learning a lot of the legal stuff. Because the minute I got here, what I did is something that I love the most is learning. I educated myself. I paid
Yes.
classes. I have not stopped learning and will not stop until the day I die. Whatever is the subject, that I know that every single thing I learn, it just is one more tool to my box of knowledge.
Elena, I feel like for our listeners, I hope they're taking notes, especially for those listeners that are kind of feeling stuck right now. Maybe they've had a setback. Maybe they have their moment where all of a sudden they feel like they don't know anything, just like you had by not being able to communicate. I feel like that kind of thing happens to all of us in different ways where you want to start something new, but being new is scary.
Eh,
And so
Terrifying.
that terrifying, right? And so, but what you're sharing, that you were persistent in the face of challenge,
Yeah.
that you have a drive and you have a curiosity that's going to drive you to keep learning. And I think that those skills are what separates people from letting themselves be victims of their circumstances to truly driving towards whatever their life purpose is. And I think your story very much articulates that.
Thank you. You read something very interesting, and this 2026 is my year of curiosity.
That's my word. I love
I
curiosity. Yes. Oh,
That's my
yes.
2026 word.
This is a good one.
2020 was goodbye, amigo. I got rid of a lot of
Ah, yes. Yes. And that was for a lot of us. We had the snake. We shed a lot of shit.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Definitely changed skins, right?
Yes.
Like, I perceive that by being curious is how we learn. Actually,
Yeah.
when in a negotiation, in a relationship, at work, whatever I
Yeah.
do, even during an interview, as I become curious, it makes me more successful because it allows me
Definitely.
to learn, stop and think instead of react sometimes. And trust me, I
Yes.
am
Yes.
reactive sometimes.
Yeah, I also think curiosity it pauses you from reacting, and it also helps us not be judgmental.
Eh,
For me, curiosity is one of my top values that I'm always trying to tap into, especially when I feel wronged by somebody. I
And
feel like
specifically,
if somebody is, maybe speaking down to me, it's like, past me in my 20s, that would have led me to feeling less about myself or not liking the person. Whereas now, that pause and just a curiosity, even not spoken, just wondering what are all the things that could have caused that person to act that way. That's it.
do you mind if I share one step that can
Yes, of
help?
course.
Okay, I know
Yes.
we're getting out of the history, the little story.
No, no, we can keep weaving it out as we want.
Let's say that there is a situation when somebody is saying something
Yeah.
that it challenges your persona, the who
Yeah.
you are, saying you are stupid or you are a bad man or you are a bad employee or good and bad or blah blah blah. And immediately we're gonna have a reaction. We're gonna just say, you are the stupid or what do I
Yeah.
know or get upset, right? But if we take 1 second and we become curious and we ask one simple question, what make you say that?
Yeah, it's true.
I perceive that the individual would actually think about the words, yeah, and the label. In my investigations for human resources, I eliminate labels. When somebody is giving me a story, I don't want labels. I don't want people.
Yep.
That person is a narcissist. That's a very
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
or it's a really it's a very stressful person because that doesn't. So the eliminating labels, when we eliminate labels and we name actions or facts, for instance, yeah, every time we go and drink coffee, he makes somebody pay for his coffee. Oh, that
Yeah, yeah.
him a narcissist. I will call him a cheap person, right? But everybody has a label.
Yeah,
But a label
yeah,
really do not define a person because a label comes from the association we have to that label. So that's not a clear message to the individuals listening.
yes,
Hey,
so true.
he doesn't pay for his coffee when we go out
Yeah,
or margarita or martini or whatever it is, right? That is a way of interpretation of narcissists. So again, just
yeah.
instead of listening to labels, is what makes you say that?
It's good.
Curious about, instead of be reactive and defensive, is what makes you say that? This is just
Yeah,
things that help,
it's good.
and it stops the
It's good.
like the individual, so it's out of place, right? So we have to bring it.
Of course. And think how many labels, if we were really gonna believe in labels, think how many each of us that were
Oh,
to make it accurate. I mean, where there's probably thousands of labels that you could put on me. I mean, to define it's too complex. No one label captures a human.
Les, I will be doing some surveys, but if we have a survey, just one with one question, what represents for you to be a bad mom? I bet we
Mhm.
have over 200 answers.
Yeah, that's so true.
And
That's a great point.
and that's the thing. If I tell you
Yeah.
mom was really bad, you have no idea what she did. If I tell you mom never gave me a hug, right?
I did have a behavior question that also ties to history too. What fascinates me about your work and who you are as a person is I know plenty of people that work in payroll, plenty of people work in HR. We've talked about AI and you having coding background. Not everybody that I've met in those spaces also has such that crossroads of human behavior. So my question was, in your career, when did you start realizing that it was behavior that was driving the outcomes? When did that kind of aha come to you?
I think I was about 19 years old, and I was already like I had a huge already background on payroll. Like even the payroll
Mhm.
software companies, will if I was looking for a job or wanted a job, or they were referring me. I was working for a company in Mexico who had about over 3,000 employees, and I was replacing an individual who was going to go out for in pregnancy. So when I came in like probably a couple of weeks before she left, and trained, and I noticed the systems. For me, systems, because of the background in computers, systems had to flow, right? And
Yeah.
and problem solving became my second highest value.
Yep.
Problem, I see it as a inspiring challenge rather than draining word, right? For like most people.
Yep.
So I recognize the flaws, and I inspire or gave incentives to the supervisors to provide correct data. Back then was half electronic, and they still had to sign the timesheet. And I remember, imagine in a 3,000 employees payroll. By the way, it's paid in cash back then.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Imagine just 1% of employees had errors on the payroll on a weekly basis. So I have
Yep.
30 individuals in line every Friday coming to me to complain. One day, it was, let's just call him Jose,
Mhm.
individual. Because of the amount of cash that I was managing or that I had to handle, I have security who had to tell me who was the next employee. And I remember they say that Laura was the next one, and suddenly I saw Jose. And that first scared me because I didn't know who he was, and that was not okay. So I was, strong with him, and I tell him, "Who are you and why are you here? It's not your turn." I put him in his place, even though I was a 19-year-old. And I think that was
Yeah.
the character has been my thing since a very young age. And I remember sent him back until it was his turn. He didn't think he had a lot of time in lunch to come and talk to me. That's why he skipped two individuals. However, when it was his turn, I remember by that, no individual will go to the payroll lady to say, "I hope you have a good day, lady," on Friday, right? They,
That's right. Yes.
they are upset. You pay an employee $1 more, and the employee, know nothing, nothing. You pay the
Mhm.
employee $1, 1 cent less, and you'll have the employee knocking on your door.
That's true.
So,
Very much. Yeah.
to our degree, we all value money in our own way, in our own form. So, when he came back and I saw his angry face, like not only something went wrong with his pay, but now he hates the payroll lady. And I have some supervisors there, and I remember that I saw him and I start immediately because I care. I care about individuals. I care about humanity. As he was leaving, I said, "Hey, Jose," with a little bit assertive kind of voice, and he
Yeah.
look back. He turned around and looked back. It like I'm going to, respect. And then I said, "I hope you have a wonderful weekend," or something like that, something really nice.
Yeah.
And his face was like didn't know what to do. And it's one of my styles, by the way. Like this is the way people like, they don't know what. I don't even know what's gonna come to my own mouth.
I love it.
So he left, but that whatever he had, he switched at that moment. And then I remember the supervisor who was there started laughing. He says, "I can't believe you just did that. You just like disarm him completely." And that was the moment, that day, when I said, I will never, ever have an employee coming to me upset and returning back upset. That's when I make a decision to make a difference in payroll in human resources.
Mm.
And by doing that, I had to learn what moves the world. And by learning that, I will be able to communicate, negotiate. I had already very instinctive, let's say, traits that helped me with that, obviously, even by doing that. But the same problem can be solved in two very different ways and can go
Yeah.
down or can be resolved just
Yeah.
the way we communicate.
That's so true.
It's our choice to is we can make that choice. And sometimes because our own history, we're not able to make those decisions. We just use whatever we can with the best we have. Imagine, right? I can use excuse that I only go to middle school and I didn't go to high school and be, a terrible individual. And that will, and it's a great justification of my behavior, but I do not accept that because who I am is greater than what I am.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever occurs to me does not define who I am. I'm the only one who has the right to determine who I am.
What I'm thinking right now is I keep thinking that we're at a very powerful point collectively
Yeah,
in our country.
I agree.
I mean, in many different ways, but in one way that I feel like is a positive shift that's going to come out on the other side of the world we're in right now is so much of our US leadership style has been that whole hierarchy, power over, really kind of teaching HR professionals, the payroll lady to be that enforcer, the person that was, kind of inserting her power over people that are in line. And so if they're coming out mad and you're trying to exert power over them, you're just making the situation worse. It's kind of escalating that where I feel like now we're in a shift where we're realizing that hierarchy is only good for a very top few people. It's really the idea of power with and power for, recognizing that these people in line had a need and they had a fear and seeing the humanity in them. And by seeing that and acknowledging and recognizing them as human, you now have an opportunity to join power and not try to kind of do over. And so I'm wondering, and now you're decades now working in situations like this since that 19-year-old and having that light bulb moment. When you think of kind of the other world, the other Elena that you want to be now, what are some of the characteristics of leaders that want to lead in that world?
Thank you, Russ. That's a very interesting question. When the amount of work on human behavior that I have done, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
time and money, I can
Yeah.
tell you that it's only reasonable for me to be the individual that solved the problem no matter what it takes. And by that, it means, yes, sometimes I'm going to be the dictator because there are employees who definitely are out of place, who do things that are very wrong. But I'm also going to be the mom. So I am the
Yeah.
and I am the that. And sometimes employees, I have had conversations with employees who tell me this lady work at a restaurant that has a bar, and it's a very young woman, probably 19. And she said there was a very drunk customer who she was walking, and he put his hand on her shoulder, and he was trying to be nice, but she didn't appreciate that. And with his hand, he went and slapped her in her bottoms.
Yeah.
And I have been the woman immediately who they actually call to fire customers and said, "You are not welcome ever again." And having the
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's a good company that allows for that.
no, I have make so many decisions right on the spot for, and a lot of my clients allow me to make decisions. And I have clients who call me for human resources, and I say, Elena, I don't know who I am, but somebody gave me your phone number and I need to fire an employee in 2 hours. Can you please come to my office? Where are you located? An hour away. Let me see. Well, I had more flexibility before, but and without knowing anything, what an employer does not get to that conclusion unless something happened before. Something the employee did. If you have an employee who is producing and is a wonderful employee, then the employer is never going to make that decision. I have employees who actually more than once, and I don't know if you know this, but in California we have a violence program that every company has to have a set up in the company, because we have thousands of deaths with work related in the country per year. Thousands. So imagine how serious this is. Violence protection is a huge, huge thing that is happening right now in California. So when I have employees who pull knives, right? And they complain, and employee says, well, it wasn't a big deal. He was upset, or he was just cutting something and he, raised the hand with the knife. And I said, that is unacceptable. And they said, oh, we already talked. Everything is okay. I don't care. I have to get involved because you have to understand any act of violence, even if the employee was joking, even if the employee was, upset or screaming, or in some cultures, sometimes they haven't adapted to the fact that we don't do that here in the United States. And by cultures, I don't mean anybody specific. There's so many cultures that are loud and use their hands and use their body to communicate. And if by doing that, they had just one knife at the same time, that looks completely different. We had to adapt to where we go. And that's part of what our lives, and that's part of answering your question. As a leader, first of all, we have to be objective. We cannot really let our decisions be driven by our emotional behaviors, because 30 years ago, a guy by the name of, Jose, let's say Jose, who was wearing a blue shirt, hurt my feelings. And now I'm dealing with a new Jose who's wearing a blue shirt. I cannot be using my amygdala and my emotions to make that decision. And, as a human behavior specialist, and I'm helping so many leaders and so many men who had expecting high performance by them and others, their mind has to be subjective because they manage a lot of money and a lot of people. And leadership takes roles everywhere in our lives. We have roles of leadership in our homes, at work, sometimes with our family. When family visits from other states to do Thanksgiving or Christmas, somebody has to take a leadership role. And sometimes it's not the person who is in the house, because families get together. Our kids take leadership roles among their friends. This is something that we learn at a very young age. And we must be objective, because when we are an objective, imagine if we're not objective with our kids. That's a role that we play also as a leader, right? If we provide more support to one of our kids, what's going to happen to the other one? Not being objective means not looking at the facts. What is really in front of us? Again, no labels. What really happened? And that's everywhere. So again, in order to define who I am, I will not make a decision based on the events that occur in my life. As challenging as those have been or not, all they are for me is one more tool and my box of knowledge and wisdom.
That's right.
I will use at the right time.
Where do you think people get stuck trying to do the right thing, trying to live their values, yeah, and trying to do their best at work or as leaders? Where do you think the break
I
happens?
love this question, and I can tell you without a doubt, working with so many men leaders, it's
Mhm.
on the subordination they have of from social expectations, from parents, from religious institutions. They have to be in a specific way instead of honoring who they want to be. They don't ask who I am, who am I? And they don't answer
Yes,
I am. They
that's
ask
right.
who I should be. And anytime
Yep,
that you use an imperative, should, must, need, you are subordinating to some other entity, regardless if it's your mother-in-law, your sister, your mother, your priest, whatever it is. Anytime you use an imperative, you will be subordinating to other authorities. And by that, you will never be authentic. You will be stuck. Because in order to fulfill a life and a life purpose, we have to be in alignment with our authentic self. And
very
when we
much.
need to be this way, that's not according to who. So I'm going to
Yeah,
invite for those. Imagine all the listener. Imagine that you're saying, "I need to lose weight." Oh, that's another subject that is so interesting to me. You know, the number one reason why individuals make decisions is because of fear of loss. When an individual said, "I want to lose weight," all our lives we have been imprinted the word "we should not lose" in our brains. And when we say we want to lose weight, that's not going to happen. We need to, you know how some people said
yes, yes.
weight or
Yes, words matter,
it.
words become beliefs, and so, yes, I love then coming back to your "I am" statement, yeah, and how much that drives,
Yes.
"I am healthy, I am strong," those words that are gonna help pull you forward.
And what determine our values when you ask, ask you for the audience, ask yourself, who are you? Who am I? And when you answer, I am, and the first time that come out of your mouth, it's going to be your value, your highest value. If you say, I am a mom, that's what you are. Your kids are your highest value. You said, I am a speaker,
Emma,
that's who you are. That is your ontological purpose here. That's who you are meant to be. That's your highest value, your telos, and nothing else. Everything else could be important. I remember working with a couple where family was their highest value for them. But as kids were 13 and 14 around, he was a doctor for kids. And her purpose was more into something more spiritual and events and stuff like that, teaching. And at the same time, he found it very challenging that family was not her highest value anymore. And the fact is that she still wanted to be a mom and she still was the greatest mom, but her purpose of helping other individuals with their Lyme and their pain and their wounds was more important to her than the kids. It doesn't mean that the kids are neglected. It just means that
that's right.
sometimes we have another purpose. And that's
Yeah,
what's breaking a lot of things, right? There's a difference into I think there is a different a broken understanding between woman power and woman fulfillment.
I wanna pause for a second because I feel like what you just said, I have goosebumps again because I think it's so powerful. Sometimes people hear, "Be your authentic self," and that they don't know how. What does that mean to them, And I think it's the number one thing we all can do, I think, is focus on knowing who we are, just like you're saying, and living that no matter what. My husband and I were both on our second marriages, and in our wedding vows, we didn't promise forever. We promised to love each other in each brand new day and support each other's individual journeys and wherever that takes our soul. Because in the moment we got married, maybe in that moment, maybe family was my number one value. But as I grow, as my kids need me differently, as my husband needs me differently, as I get different opportunities, my purpose and where my soul brings me, that evolves and that changes. And so to be measured against one moment in time when that was my top value, but like you're saying, it doesn't mean that you are neglecting your other values. It just means giving yourself grace to follow your soul's path. And in doing so, it's going to lead you to your highest potential.
You know, how many times really they ask the question, "Who am I?"
Right?
And answer
Right?
it. Not just ask the question, answer it.
Yes. Yes.
It will be wise to even ask every morning, right? When we look at the mirror,
Right?
"Who am I?"
Yeah.
And I am, and whatever.
Yes.
You know, there are individuals who they're gonna answer, "I am a receptionist," or "I am a
Yes.
baker," and that, even
Yes.
if they don't have their own business, the fact that they
Yes.
bake for other individuals is fulfilling for them. And I am
Yes.
extraordinary bakers, by the way. That's I know that they were born to do that.
Yeah.
And
Does anything stand out? You know, you host intimate conversations with men. Is there anything else that's surprised you, like, as you've evolved that space? Are there any other themes that have come out in those conversations that have either surprised you or enlightened you?
there is an interview coming up with an individual somebody asked me what was the most surprising. It has a very
Yeah.
interesting interview, but he knew he was gay. He's in his 70s, retired. He knew he was gay and a very young age, but he was the 80s, and the 80s people were dying. Gay men were dying. So
Yes.
he chose to leave and he married a woman.
Oh,
And when he was 52, she decided that she didn't want to continue to be married and he outsourced the relationship with another woman.
yep.
So it's not surprising and it's not new, but we make choices of
Yeah.
surviving instead of being authentic. Sometimes we make the decision, whatever is easier, whatever is, and I'm not saying he did right or wrong, or it was the right decision. That's the thing. At every single moment in our life, we are in our values. At that moment, maybe having kids also play a role. And that was the way he accomplished that. He just got another dog, by the way. However, being authentic, I cannot imagine how he felt for so many years being with a woman, knowing that he was really attracted to other men. And guess what? That same feeling is in every one of us. When somebody invited us to a party that we don't want to go, either
Yes.
a wedding, well, actually, weddings are more fun, but maybe a baby shower or maybe a retirement or something that we don't want to go, but we have to.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
have to pretend. This is, you know, this is why pretending doesn't work. We can say
That's right.
and pretend to be, but if you think about it, people can people body language. We communicate through body language, 60 to 80,
Mhm.
right? Which means that our body is telling the truth before our
Oh, yes, definitely.
so
So true.
beautiful, strong. I in that moment, I know there is a void in my head. By the way, I was having this conversation with a client yesterday. Anytime an individual, for those of you who are listening right there, anytime somebody says, I am this and emphasize on that, or for someone who says, I don't do that or I am not like that, watch out.
Yeah, it's
Because do you think Miss Universe has to go with her little, thing across her chest and walk? And you think she says, I am the most beautiful woman in the world? Absolutely not. Everybody knows
yes.
that. You know,
Yes, right. She doesn't have to say it.
our life demonstrate who we are.
Yes.
And that is the,
Yeah.
so we don't have to convince ourselves or anybody. All we have to do is be authentic. And authenticity is the way of fulfillment. But in order to have
Yes.
a fulfilled life, you have to pay the price of authenticity. And that is
Yes.
not easy.
No, the world, people, are trying to push against and trying to get you to get in line with whatever they want you to be. Another thing in our household that we follow is we're either a hell yes about things or it's a no. Anything that we get invited to do in our family is if we're on the fence, then we're a no because it's like that's our body. That feels like our gut telling us that we're not aligned with whatever that invitation is.
Can I use one little bad word in your part?
Please, of course.
Now, I'm going to invite everybody to do a little exercise for those individuals who are listening. Imagine that someone really superior, I'm going to say the universe, that's my God, or God,
Yet,
or someone, whoever you believe, you have a name for that, comes to you tonight and tells you, dear, whatever your name is, you have a month of life left. The question is, I will ask you, what would you do different? And I want you to take a few seconds to think the first thing you will change, do or don't do. And now I have another question. What the fuck are you waiting for? Are you waiting to have a month of life so you can change your life? So think about that. Think
it's
about
huge.
how relevant and how important is that today you make that decision.
Yep.
Today, in your own soul, whoever you support and whoever your God is, you trust, you love, and loves you, tells you,
Yep.
you have whatever it is, 3 months, 10 years, 30 years. Are you willing to continue wasting your life with doing or not doing what you really want?
Worth it.
Nobody else.
No, that's not worth it.
We try to copy others and follow orders instead of being ourselves. And by being ourselves is living a life of authenticity. And we will never, no copy will be more valuable than an original.
Oh, so true. I heard a quote this week from another podcast, and I don't remember who to attribute it to, but something like, you know, each of us, the only thing that we're the best at, where there's no competition, is being the best at being us. So if you could just be, everything we're talking about and live that boldly, you are going to become your best, and nothing else competes with that. So there's no pattern to follow. It's just you. And so I think that's such a powerful way to think about that.
You know what I tell my employees when they are, because I do approaches differently. I don't go and say, hey, you're a bad boy, unless it's really a bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And when they made a boo-boo and I speak with them, and sometimes they say, why this person is happy, you're just supposed to discipline the person.
Yeah.
Because I listen to the people, right? With the back,
Mm,
I understand people are starving of being listened, of being known, of being heard, of being
mm,
meaning something to somebody. And we are losing our lives and not doing that and just surviving and navigating and close our eyes and just, being feeling like underwater just one more day to make money, to bring food, but not really fulfilling our lives. And when we are in alignment and we know what we want, we will only know what we want if we ask who we are and answer,
mm.
yeah, I am
Yes.
a tractor driver. By the way, that's
Yeah.
a lot of fun. I am, I ask myself what I love the most doing, and I did so many things, and I answer, I love having intimate conversations.
Mm, I love that.
What if I
Yes.
do that? Like since I was a little girl, I like conversation.
Same, same. That's what brought us here, Elena. Same. Isn't it so interesting? Ever since I was little, I've just loved wanting to get to know people. It's that curiosity. I so want to just know people on a deeper level than what so many others, I feel like, what society kind of teaches us, so I very much relate to that.
We learn about ourselves by learning about people.
So true.
There's a friend who came and visited about a year ago. He says, does everything have to be deep with you?
Oh, I have girls' nights sometimes where it's like a friend will be like, okay, tonight it's my birthday and we're celebrating and we're not allowed to have any deep talk. Because it's like they know that very quickly, I'll get a question and it'll just turn into a life, but I love it.
I was so distracted with learning and studying and working all my life that I didn't really get engaged with, smoking things that were not
Yeah, yeah,
allowed
yeah.
back then and they are right now. But I said that I get high having a conversation and those are my most orgasmic moments.
Yes, yes. So
There's
true.
nothing,
I love that.
there's
I love that.
the
That's
energy.
so well, speaking of that, I'm gonna shift us. We have just a little bit of time left together. And these next few questions are a segment I call Rapid Reel. And they're just meant to be whatever comes to your gut as a quick response. So no need to overthink these. The first, we had talked about travel before we jumped on the call. And I'm curious of all the places you've traveled to, what place stands out as where you felt the most aligned, that just made you feel alive and so yourself?
I was just gonna tell you that before. So people ask me that question, and in 2019, I'm just gonna tell you my 10 days of my life, right?
Yeah.
So I was in Hollywood meeting a man that I dreamed of 2 years before, okay?
Wow.
In a
That's incredible.
Hollywood party. Then from there, I went to Johannesburg in South Africa to facilitate with Dr. John DiMartini. I went
Yep.
to Cape Town and I was in Table Mountain, one of the wonders of the world.
Yes, I've been there this last year, this summer.
There you go.
Yes.
In 10 days, remember? And then I to
Yes.
Italy to Mountain Etna that it's erupted up
Yes.
or so.
Wow.
A few days after that, I was in Arizona in a concert of the Rolling Stones. That was 10 days.
Wow, that was your 10-day. That is incredible.
And I'm gonna tell you what was my favorite moment. The day after I facilitated with Dr. DiMartini, I went in Johannesburg, invited by one of my colleagues to a clinic for people with mental conditions.
Mm.
You see a lot of poverty. You see the business people have 4 oranges in the front of their houses, and the houses are built with very materials that are not strong. Let's just put it that way. As I walk in there and I listen to the stories, and you know, at one point, I raised my hand and I raised my voice and tried to ask questions in the human behavior. And the lady shut me down, the lady who was in charge. And I did. And then I listened and observed. When the meeting ended, there was this woman who came to me and she was telling me, I was addicted to drugs and blah, 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 but I survived and blah, blah, blah. You can do it. And she looked at me, right, trying to give me this advice. And the fact that she had so much hope and so much love
Mm.
trying to convince me, she doesn't know who I am,
Yes. Yes.
inspired me to give her a hug. And I have a picture, and that was my most meaningful and wonderful moment out of those 10 days.
Wow, that is a powerful story, a wonderful example. Human connection.
Human
That
connection.
is
And like I tell you,
yeah.
with that statement, you see
Yes.
that that's very high on my values.
So, then I'll shift to another question, because human connection makes me think of the work that you do.
Mhm.
What is your very favorite part of the work that you do?
The moment and working with men, seeing men tears, and some of them say, "You're not gonna make me cry today." 2 minutes later, they're boom. Seeing men becoming so vulnerable, real, authentic, and releasing so much pain, realizing I was telling a very powerful man the other day, have you ever heard of that woman who attracts the narcissist and he treats her so bad and she's still there and then finally she leaves and attracts a new narcissist? And I said, that's who you are right now. And his eyes, the light the light in his eyes when he makes sense when he put that together and that makes sense to him, like the holy shed and the tears, the watery eyes. That's my favorite part because I know
So good.
that I just broke those chains from that man
Yeah.
and to be a truly powerful individual in the journey of a fulfilling authentic life.
Wow, that was so moving. One more of these questions. What is something little, everybody listening right now, just something little that they could do in their upcoming week to embody what we're talking about today?
Yeah, this is little and it's as big as they want. Just close your eyes and listen to your body, whatever itches, and ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me? Body
Yes.
is our best communicator. Remember, body language is 60 to 80% of our communication. What makes you
Yeah.
think that your body's not talking to yourself?
Right. So true. Well, before we get to the final question, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to add? And then also, how can our folks connect with you and your work?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want every single person who's listening and who's wondering, and they have just an itchy desire of something is they want to know something different. And maybe those who feel completely lost, who trying to figure out who they am, that's really good news. Because in order to find yourself, you have to feel lost. And when you feel lost, just take another step and you're closer and closer to find yourself. That would be the thing I will say. And they can find us at intimateconversationswithmen@gmail.com, intimateconversationswithmen.com. And our phone number is, I forgot almost, 858. See. Give me 1 second.
No problem. And we will, for our listeners, this will also be included in the description of our episode. We'll include the contact information that you provide will be there as well.
Okay. It's
You're welcome.
858-833-5025. That's a direct number.
Perfect.
And
Wonderful.
if anybody, any man who knows that there has a wonderful story, contact me. I will love to
Yes.
listen and having an intimate conversation.
I love the work that you're doing. It has been such a pleasure having you join us.
Thank you.
Our last question for today is that we have listeners right now who may be in their messy middle or maybe even at a rock bottom kind of feeling in their life. And I'm wondering, when you look back on who you were in those moments in your life, is there a piece of advice that you wish would have come sooner?
One, there's going to be two. The first one is,
Yeah.
my sister told me, I know you're hurting right now, but I promise you that one day you're going to look back and smile or laugh about the situation. And I want each person who's there and listen to me. I promise you, like my sister did to me, I promise you that you will be looking back at this moment and laugh or smile, because this moment is nothing else but the true moment of you becoming more empowered. That will be one. And then don't stop listening or listen to your intuition. You have the wisdom and with it.
Yes.
When whatever is happening, just stop and think, where is the opposite within your life? If you feel poor, where are you rich?
Well,
So find it. And there's
yes. So powerful. Elena Sophia, I'm so glad our paths have crossed. I want to thank our listeners for spending time with us. If the episode resonated, please share with somebody who needs it. Until next time, stay messy, friends. Before we wrap today, I want to invite you to be part of the Becoming is Messy community. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And if there's anything that resonates with you, please leave a review. Your feedback means the world to me, and it helps other people find this community. Follow me on social media. I'd love to hear your ideas for future topics, your questions, and stories from your own messy moments. And if you're feeling inspired, check out the Becoming is Messy shop, where you can grab a mug, a t-shirt, or something else that reminds you to embrace your messy magic every single day. A huge thank you to the incredible Wolves and Sheep for providing the music for Becoming is Messy. Check them out on your favorite music streaming platform. As we close out today's episode, remember this: messy is just another word for growing. So keep showing up, keep laughing, and keep making beautifully awkward progress. Until next time, stay messy, my friends.